Universal life can become cheaper as you get older. In this episode, I'm going to hit the question, doesn't IUL get more expensive as you get older and it can lapse? Absolutely not. If it's structured correctly, you're going to learn how and why in this episode. I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been doing this for more than 46 years for clients, helping them optimize their financial assets, minimize taxes, and empower their authentic wealth. My favorite vehicle, dream solution for many goals such as retirement, college funding, business working capital, emergency funds, real estate management, and on and on and on is what I call the Laser Fund. Laser Fund is a max-funded indexed universal life insurance policy. So if you're asking this question, you probably already know a little bit about IUL. If you are not aware of the TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA tax citations, I want you to search other videos to understand these. But when you design an IUL policy correctly, if you're doing it for living benefits, first and foremost, to be able to grow the most cash value and then have the highest amount of net spendable income, it will knock the socks off of other traditional investments like IRAs and 401ks, especially invested in the market. It will double or triple the cash flow that you would get out of the same money put into a whole life insurance policy, because universal life was designed and first thought of by E.F. Hutton to be for living benefits, for tax-free accumulation and income, not primarily for the death benefit. When you understand that, this is how you can make sure that if you earn an average like I have, between 6 to 10% rates of return, that you're netting 5 to 9% rates of return. Now, to be honest, with Indexed Universal Life, there are years I've earned 17%, 25%, even 55% with a multiplier, a performance factor. But the average has been around 11, netting 10 for a 25-year period. Using indexing, I've been able to achieve that. But with just normal universal life, my average returns have been around 8.2%, but interest rates are relative. If you want to have the highest rate of return net compared to the gross rate of return, that if you only earn 7, you would net 6, make sure it's structured correctly so the insurance gets cheaper as you get older. Now, most people, when I say, hey, insurance gets cheaper as you get older, no, insurance always is more expensive when you get older. Now, the cost of insurance per thousand of benefit goes up as you get older because more and more people die the older they are. But the actual amount at risk in a properly structured indexed universal life insurance policy goes down to 1/20th what it was when you started, when it's structured correctly. So let me explain how this works. So under TEFRA and DEFRA tax citations, TEFRA is the Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. DEFRA is the Deficit Reduction Act of 1984. If you've watched my educational videos, hopefully you understand that what you're doing is you're structuring your insurance policy to have the least amount of insurance the IRS will let you get away with under TEFRA and DEFRA tax citations, and put in the most premium that the IRS allows as fast as they allow. So the example that I use to keep it simple is a 60-year-old, for example, that wants to put in $500,000. They used to be able to put in $500,000 in one fell swoop. After 1988, they had to spread it out over 5 years in order to grandfather themselves to have tax-free income forever after. And that's because the banks and credit unions lobbied Congress to slow the flow, but they didn't want to kill these because this is where they put 30 to 40% of their Tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety. And so we have to comply with 3 tax citations, TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. When you structure your IUL properly, then you take the least amount of death benefit, and then I choose usually the level death benefit where you can put in your cash contributions and they qualify as part of the original required death benefit. So if I was 60 years old and I wanted to be grandfathered to put in $500,000. The fastest I would want to do that would be in 5 years, $100,000 a year for 5 years. The minimum death benefit under TEFRA and DEFRA for a 60-year-old is $1,250,000 or thereabouts. If I was 75 or 80, it would be less than that. If I was 22-year-old female, it would be 5 or 6 million maybe. But see, the actual cost of insurance is the same. If your goal is to earn, like I have, 11% and net 10, you want to have only 1% of your interest drain out for the cost of insurance. So when you design it correctly in the first place, you take the least amount of insurance under TEFRA and DEFRA to put in the amount of money you want to be grandfathered to put in there, and then you put it in as fast as the TAMRA law allows. As you do that, in that example, if I'm putting in $100,000 a year, after 5 years I put in $500,000. The original death benefit was $1,250,000. Well, once I have $500,000 in there of my money, the death benefit is $1,250,000, but I said, you know what, I want my $500,000 to qualify as part of the $1,250,000. So the net amount is the difference. The $750,000 is all the insurance companies at risk to cough up if you happen to die. Because $500,000 of the $1,250,000 is now your own money. Why would you do that? You could opt to have the death benefit always be on top of your cash, but now you're going to pay for $1,250,000 of life insurance the rest of your life. That's whole life, okay? I don't want that. I want the cash to qualify as part of the death benefit, so they're charging me less and less as the risk goes down. If $500,000 of cash value doubles in 7.5 years, like it has in mine, or if you only earn 7.2%, it would double in 10 years. Now your $500,000 goes to $1 million. The original death benefit was $1,250,000. Now there's only $250,000 that the insurance company is at risk to pay out if you happen to die. They only charge you for that net amount at risk, okay? Well, the million doubles to $2 million in another 7.5 or 10 years. Well, wait a minute. You have $2 million of cash. The original death benefit was $1,250,000. TEFRA and DEFRA says, well, now the death benefit grows with your cash, and it must stay 5 percentage points ahead. What does that mean? It means that when I have $2 million, the death benefit is $2.1 million. The insurance company is only charging me for $100,000, but the interest on my $2 million is way more than paying for the cost of insurance, the $100,000, even though I'm older. And so that's why the older I get, the cheaper the insurance becomes. When I tell people I've been averaging 11, netting 10, or if I earn 9, I net 8, or whatever it is, that is based on the average. But the older I am, if I've had a policy for 30 years, if I earned 11, I might net 10.9, because the cost of insurance is way more than compensated with the interest on my cash value. And so the net cost is very, very small. And this is what allows me to take income on $1 million nest egg of maybe $100,000 a year without depleting principal. Because the cost of insurance is so low, it becomes cheaper as I get older. Hopefully you're getting this, but one last point. Sometimes whole life insurance proponents say, well, with whole life, you get guarantees. It will never lapse. Well, that comes with some very rigid requirements. You have to put in a set amount of premium payments for the first several years, or else it will lapse. You do not have those guarantees anymore. If you want guarantees, if you think that the economy is going to be horrible for the next 30 or 40 years, you can get those same guarantees in a universal life policy. You're going to pay for them like you do in a whole life policy. But with universal life, you can actually pay a little premium for a no lapse guarantee. You may give up a little bit of your cash flow or rate of return, but it means this: you cannot suffer the policy to lapse, which is what a lot of whole life people say. Oh, the universal life will crash and burn. Well, first of all, they don't understand how the insurance gets cheaper as you get older. But you can actually purchase a rider that says your policy will never lapse if you live to be 120, if you will simply take out only this much income a year. That's called a no lapse guarantee. So anything that maybe a whole life insurance agent may say, well, whole life does this, I would argue Well, yeah, but you're paying for that. You're only going to earn maybe 6% and you're going to net 3. The best whole life I've ever seen, if you earned 8, you would only net 6. I would rather earn 9 and net 8 or earn 11 and net 10. You do that with universal life, and if I'm worried that, well, what if this lapses? What if the cost of insurance somehow goes through the roof? And I'm going, what? No. It has to be within the contract. I can purchase the same guarantees on a menu that whole life offers with universal life. I don't do that because, frankly, I base it on some of the worst periods since the Great Depression, and I know that's very highly unlikely that there won't be enough cash in there to keep me insured if I live to be 120. So you have the same choices, but don't overpay for the guarantees and trade it off for $1 million of cash value only giving you $40,000 a year of income out of a whole life policy, let's say, compared to $80,000 or more that you could get out of a universal life policy that has the same amount of cash in it. Does that make sense? If you would like to learn more about how this works, I would recommend that you read and study my most recent book, The Laser Fund. I'll gift you this book for free. It's 300 pages of charts, graphs, explanations, 62 actual client stories. I'll pay for the book. You can claim your free copy by going to laserfund.com, L-A-S-E-R, fund.com. You contribute $5.95 toward the shipping and handling, and I'll send out a book to you, and there's options there to listen and learn and watch and learn also.